you're here on a Tuesday, and on Tuesdays we do deep dives into the environmental, social, ethical issues with the world. Today we're talking about everyone's favourite hate topic, influencers. We're just going to be jumping straight into it because my camera battery is about to die, but all of my sources are in the description box along with everything I've used on my face. We're creating a very fall look today because even though we're heading into spring in New Zealand, everyone in America is doing fall looks, so I really wanted to do one. So there we go. Everything's cruelty-free, vegan, not owned by parent companies that test on animals. We're having a bit of a rant today, so if you're here for it, get a cup of tea, get a wine, and let's get right on into it. I've been seeing a lot of people like, hating on influencers. We also need to bear in mind the fact that creating content on the internet in the way that we do now has only really been a thing since, 2006? A maximum of 15 years with YouTube's partnership program. It would have been really good if I'd fully planned this look out. Hey, let's just hope it turns out fine. Back in 2006 though, ads were being placed onto like the videos as opposed to like there being sponsorships or like product placement in a video or anything like that. Obviously any time that you do a product placement now, you have to have it stated that there's a product placement, you have to say it's gifted, all this other stuff. In case you're wondering, everything I've used today is actually my own money that I've spent. So there's a bit of a thing here because we've had advertising and product placement in place for many years where it hasn't actually had to be disclosed in the way that we have to have things disclosed these days. You know, movies where you see a car go by, free, and it's product placement. So they got that for free, so you get funding through doing things like this. So you think about music videos, you see a pizza. If you've watched He's All That recently, then you'll have definitely seen all of the product placements in that as well. So none of this stuff has to actually be disclosed directly to the viewer, whereas for content creators, for influencers, it 100% does. There is actually a really interesting video all about this issue, which I'll also link for you down below too. So you've got all of this advertising that is completely hidden from you and people are just expected to not question anything, and then you've got this new form of advertising which people are hating on the people for. So you see why I'm getting at here? Like, advertising kind of pays the bills for everything. So I asked on Instagram what my followers thought about influencers. So if you're not following me already, check me out here, check me out in my stories, because we go into basically like the topics that I'll be creating on this channel. Now, is any of this scientific? No. I also am recognizing the fact that there will be people that didn't actually want to respond to my polls because they didn't want to have this whole confrontational thing. Now, there are some confrontational people that will just participate anyway, but a lot of people aren't really all that confrontational, and you wouldn't want me to correct you with like the fire of a thousand suns. I was genuinely just curious as to why people think certain ways around influencers when they don't think certain ways around people that are creating art. Influencers are the one punching bag that society has deemed to be absolutely okay to attack all the time. It's socially like acceptable. What is an influencer? Let me explain. An influencer is a personal thing that influences another. That's it. You don't have to meet any particular criteria in order to be able to be an influencer, despite the polls that I put out. You don't have to be any of that. Let's think about who you know in your own life who is an influencer. It could be your friends, it could be your family, it could even be you. So they could be championing climate action, equal rights, human rights, zero waste living, animal welfare, or even your favourite holiday spots. Basically, the thing is, no matter what, you're influencing people regardless of whether you're making money off it or not. So for example, you can tell your friend about a restaurant that they should go to, boom, influenced. So now that we've established that we all fit into this category of influencer, we can keep talking, because I really wanted to look into further why people consider every person that is an influencer to be a terrible person. All of the content creators that I really enjoy count as influencers. They get sponsorships, or they get their money from AdSense, or they get their money from Patreons, whatever, or even they don't get any money at all. Because the thing is that they influence me and they influence many other people. Some people would even consider me to be an influencer, and I definitely do not meet like any of like the thresholds to count as an influencer. I watch all of the influencers I do much more than I do of any movies or TV shows or anything. We are a YouTube household here. Basically, you think about the amount of time a cat spends sleeping in a day, we spend that same amount of time watching YouTube videos. I can't cut my crease and talk at the same time, so please enjoy this voiceover. So when I asked on IG if people thought that people were lesser than for pursuing art or entertainment, they all said no, but the votes were very different about influencers. So like I said before, I would argue that influencers are artists or entertainers or very skilled in particular fields. They wouldn't be where they are unless people found value in watching them or engaging with their work, because it is work. Being creative is honestly hard work and it takes a lot more time than you may think. So for example, my videos, which I create for free every single week, take between 20 to 40 hours to do so, sometimes more if I'm doing one of like the people deep dives. But like I said, everyone thought that that was a valid pursuit, so I shouldn't actually even have to defend this. But because people are advertising to you directly, it's apparently terrible. But people creating adverts in a regular job is acceptable, or sneaking them into another form of artwork is totally acceptable. So you're getting what I mean here. Is it the advertising or is it the lifestyle? So you know that I do not like consumerism or capitalism. If you've ever seen one of my other videos, you know that I'm not really here for it. I do like acquiring tools that allow me to do my art better. I like getting things that help make my space at home feel a bit nicer. But in terms of capitalism and consumerism, I'm not really here for it. You're talking to someone that wears secondhand clothes, including this top that I'm wearing today, which looks way more like a negligee, but I'm very here for the 2002 vibes. So none of that is inherently about spending money, but you kind of need to spend money in order to get things in life, right? Just like you need to earn money in order to be able to live. Otherwise, you know that whole precipice that we're all cautiously balancing on between like being lower middle class and homeless is actually very, very precarious, and we're far closer to that than ever becoming a billionaire. It's kind of a way of life that we have to abide by. And the IPCC report agrees with me that capitalism is the thing that is like absolutely hurtling us towards an even darker and darker future if we just keep on with the current trajectory, and we basically have no time in order to change everything about the way that the world functions. But I don't really think that that's going to happen in time, and I think many millions of people are going to die because of it, same as species of animals, and it's a very grim future. Welcome to the nightmares I have every day. So basically, like, the world's getting worse with every rocket that gets shot into space and every haul video that gets promoted, right? Like, that's my stance on it. I don't like it, and you know what? Like, most of the influencers that I follow actually don't like it either. Wait, what's it again? You have to pay bills in order to be able to survive in this world. So in order to create a work-life balance where you can take on this job full-time, you have to rely on advertising and sponsorships and people on Patreon or Twitch or OnlyFans supporting you monthly in order to be able to do this, because you are pursuing your artistic or entertainment career. Because otherwise you have to do what people like me do, work full-time, do this part-time, and basically have no life outside of it, because this is like the only way to be able to do it. If you don't get money for it, it becomes a very all-consuming hobby, because the thing is that the algorithms demand a hell of a lot from you. So it's like the only way to do it is to advertise, baby. Because apparently, like, despite the fact that people pour hours and hours of their lives into work, it's not actually deemed to be work. So, cool. We haven't actually found a way to pay our creatives other than through advertising, because universal basic income is not a thing that people actually want to have. That means that people kind of have to become commodities in order to be able to proffer things to people, in order to be able to live, in order to be able to do the creative work. So people hate that, but they don't hate the advertisers and the people that actually work at a boring corporate job in order to actually create adverts that you obviously love, like banner ads and stuff, right? And obviously the selling of goods and services is essential, and if anything, we've all wanted to be able to support local and support the economy like a good little consumer. But when an influencer does that same advert as when a company puts up an advert, the influencer gets the hate for selling out, but the company who's doing the advert, which gets way less engagement by the way, oh, good on them for trying to get out there. I won't click on it. But you know, whatever. Oh, I can see an influencer actually use something and they review it and they provide like long-term like critiques of it. Yeah, no, I hate them. I'd rather that they just advertise the old way, which is ineffective. No matter what, you cannot escape capitalism. And the whole thing of like being entitled to get free product when they don't deserve it. Do you know how much it costs for a company to just send out free product as opposed to creating a full TV advert or a billboard? You'd rather have sneaky adverts in movies? Or is it the lifestyle? Should everyone have to suffer the way that you have? And are the roots of this actually based in envy and cringe culture? So how many of you like your day job? Or night job, as it may be? Oh, what, you love it? Do you really? Interesting. So studies vary on this, but between 60 and 85% of people hate their day job. So I'd be saying that's actually a clear majority. So I've already made my videos talking about how companies are actually taking more from us, paying us less money, and it's become less and less affordable to be able to live, and people on minimum wage are not able to actually survive on a minimum wage, and they're having to have multiple jobs. You get where I'm coming from here. People don't like their jobs, and so I get it. I totally get it. You've worked a 12-hour day, you've spent 2 hours in traffic, you get home, you want to chill out and look at your phone, and you see a beautiful person carrying beautiful things in a beautiful house, and you're like, screw you, I hate you. You are so entitled, you got everything for free, you don't even have to work for any of this. I get the whole wealth inequality thing is a massive issue, and I've talked about it. I hate the wealth inequality that is only going to get worse and has only been getting worse since the 80s. That's the people like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. But the big thing is here that we need to actually be directing our anger somewhere else, because everyone wants a scapegoat, right? And an influencer has 100% become that scapegoat because they are a product of this system. It's a product of capitalism. It's just a product of the times. It's just what is automatically going to be happening. So in the past we've had celebrities in these roles, or like I said, we've had movies and all this other stuff like sneakily advertising to you where you didn't even know it. And is it really about anger or envy when it comes to this? Because here's my other thing about it. So we've already talked about pretty privilege on here twice. And you have ableism and ageism and racism and homophobia and fatphobia all feeding into this wonderful little world of influencing. So all of those are absolutely valid reasons for critiquing like everything to do with these platforms, right? But that's the platforms, because those platforms are made by people which are made by companies that understand psychology better than I ever could, better than other people ever could, because they get psychologists to actually create it and people that have dealt with gambling in order to create it. So of course they're going to be tapping into every single little fault in our little monkey brains in order to get us to watch something for longer. And it comes down to people being pretty, it comes down to things being nice and beautiful, and that whole envy thing feeds into all of this stuff. So the thing is, when you're mad at an influencer, you're actually mad at the system. It's just the fact that you can't get mad at that system because that's what is also providing your entertainment. So then you blame the individual person as well, because they are far closer to you than anyone else would be. Because we know, for example, people like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, the Murdochs, whoever you want to talk about, like, we don't like them, but we hate influences that much more, just in the same way. So there's a whole bunch of studies which have all talked about this. Now obviously when it comes to studies, like I said, I'm not educated in any of this, I'm just referencing the stuff so that you can have a look into it yourself. And they also are recognizing the fact that this is actually based on people self-reporting, and we're fallible creatures. Okay, we're only human, we're not machines, we're not going to be 100% accurately reporting on the fact that we feel jealous most of the time, okay? So just bear that in mind as we talk about this stuff and as you read the stuff down below as well. Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they're too high up for you to knock down. An influencer or your neighbor or whoever is basically on par with you. You could actually get there a little bit easier, and so you hate them way more, okay? It's this proximity, it's the fact that you could actually put in more work and get to where they are, whatever. So I'm just going to have a little analogy here for you. So you think, for example, about gym adverts or fitness influencers. I'm not on about bodybuilders. Who are you going to hate more? The bodybuilder or the influencer? You're going to hate the influencer, because the thing is that they've got this body that you do not have, that is deemed to be socially acceptable and wanted and desirable by society. Youth and beauty and slim bodies with good hips and all this other stuff, clear skin, blah blah blah. In terms of an evolutionary standpoint, our monkey brains prefer it, and we're hardwired to. And it's the same way that society has taught us that fat phobia is 100% okay for many years. We're still fighting against it now. There are a lot of really good influencers that are working in this space actually. Does that analogy make sense? Like, it's that pang of envy and jealousy as we see someone that we know get engaged before us, or as we see our neighbor come home with a really nice car when you feel like you've worked harder at your job than they have, and so you feel like they've undeservedly got something, and so you get like this, again, pang of envy or jealousy, whatever ContraPoints wants to call it. There's different definitions depending on what country you're in, okay? Envy means one thing in one country, jealousy means one thing in another country, okay? I've already told you before that out of all of the 7 deadly sins, I would be envy, okay? So I understand these feelings of like, why do they have something and I don't have it? What can I say? Green looks good on me. It's something that I'm actively always trying to work on and try to be happy for people, but I would be lying if I didn't say that I felt jealous or envious a lot of the time anyway, but it's definitely something that I try to work on. And so when you actually see all these people going around with these high status symbols or going away on holidays to these beautiful places, then of course you're going to get like this feeling of like, ugh. Now granted, when it comes to the pandemic and people using their privilege in very incorrect ways, that's a separate issue. I'm just on about in general women not living in a plague. Especially when your idea of going on holiday is going to a slightly different supermarket to spice things up a little bit. So I actually mentioned cringe culture before, so let's have a little chat about that, shall we? Because what actually does that have to do with influencers and our hate for them? Turns out basically everything. So even people like me who are being obviously very high and mighty right now follow pages like influencers in the wild on IG. Granted, I do watch it more for like the little wholesome things and just to see what other people are doing, maybe even get some photo ideas myself, but then I don't have the bravery that they do in order to actually be able to go out there and do the stuff that they're doing, because I'm really afraid that people will think that I'm cringe. So I already talked about this in my Anna Nicole Smith video, and I've already recommended Shan Spear's like channel in general many times, but I will recommend it again and I'll link it down below. In particular, her Cringe Culture one. The influencers in the wild page that I follow is actually far tamer and actually way nicer than a lot of these other forums that people actively go on. Pixie, do you mind? Far tamer than things like lolcow, choosing beggars on Reddit, or a lot of Reddit actually, 4chan, or many other forums that actually exist out there just to hate on people. Because, you know, everyone has great hobbies, clearly. One of the reasons that we don't like influencers or act like we don't like influencers is because we see that this is a person that is like teetering on this very, very narrow little precipice of trying to be authentic and likable at the same time as actually having to try to sell something. So you have to be a human and a robot, and it's a very, very weird thing because you see them out in public doing a pose which is in an awkward position because you want the aesthetics to be there. Ooh, cringe. You see someone smiling and holding up a product. Cringe. You see someone that is comfortable in their own skin that doesn't actually fit socially accepted norms of beauty. Cringe. There's a lot that falls under this cringe umbrella, and most of it attacks influencers and fandoms actually, but that's a side issue. So cringe is basically the uncomfortable feeling that we get when we see someone making a fool of themselves, which normally means that they're actually just acting in a way that feels comfortable for them, but you know, we've deemed to be like inauthentic, uncomfortable, embarrassing, whatever other attribute you want to like put against it. So what's that thing that we do to like separate ourselves again? Oh, judgment. Yeah, you're talking to someone that is a very openly judgmental person, and I recognize that fact. And again, that is something that I do try and work on as well, despite my very condescending tone as I'm saying that. So by distancing yourself through this mechanism, because if you look down on something, it proves you never wanted it to begin with, and it can feed into that sweet, sweet feeling of superiority. So developmental psychologist Philip Rocha actually said cringe is an automatic empathy response of either contempt or compassion. So it's like we can watch it on TV, unless you're my husband and you hate anything cringy. But the thing is that we can't see real people doing it because it's too close to home, and it creates this feeling of like, oh, that could be me. I don't want to embarrass myself like they're embarrassing themselves. The empathy response comes from a place of self-hatred, and if we're anything, oh, we're self-deprecating, and we've been taught to hate ourselves. So seeing people fight against this and actually feeling comfortable in their skin is just like, cringe. And of course we have to address the classic, sexism. Well, would you think that a feminist wouldn't bring this back to sexism? Oh, please. So you know how it's really, really cool to hate on Instagram, and in the same way that whilst the song A White Woman's Instagram is a bop, it's still kind of like 2011 bassist humor bow, and whilst I do like it, you're better than that. Taking pictures of aesthetically pleasing things, of typically girly things, of celebrating girly things, like say for example you've done your makeup and you really like it and you're like, oh, this looks really nice, and you post that and it's like, not worthy. It's too feminine, and we've already deemed that feminine interests are not profitable, even though teen movers would highly doubt that. Same as anything that is aimed at teen girls. You'll happily take their money, but you'll also diss them for it, and I'm not the first person to say this. You need to reassess your femphobia, my friends. I also want to reiterate the fact that whilst being an influencer is a female-dominated space, men actually get paid more than females do in this space. Say for example, let's go on the classic thing that people hate, when people get to go to a hotel for free, right? So people are like, ugh, they're so entitled, they just get to go to this thing for free. So you send a man there and then you send a woman there. Both are employed as the same job, and both are reporting on the same thing. But when the man does it, he is giving an in-depth review that is super helpful. He goes into all of the details that you really wanted to know about. Meanwhile, the woman is looking at stuff that you're also interested in, but you know, she's just entitled and just got this for free because she's pretty, and because this is like, oh my gosh, they're just here to take those pretty Instagram photos, huh? Basically what I'm saying is that men's voices are still more valid in these spaces. How many women do you see doing tech reviews that get treated as a human being and not just as an object? And of course, one gets labelled as a content creator, the other one gets labelled as an influencer. Same as when you have women reviewing movies, which again falls under the influencer category. People are very happy to watch men hate on something in bad faith criticism, such as cinema sins, when men are watching a movie that's made for girls and women and objectively like just ripping it to shreds because it's something that is deemed to be not worthy. And then when people are enjoying something that's meant for them, people are like, ugh. Final thoughts. Obviously, it's a multitude of things, whether it's envy, fear of change, ageism, wanting to keep things a norm which hasn't existed for like 30 years, wanting to feel superior. Now look, I just wanted to highlight the fact that it's a system as a whole that you really aren't liking. Without the ever-present need to earn money to be able to survive, our landscape would look a lot different. So people apologise for sponsorships, but you do not apologise to your boss when you get a paycheck. Creating entertainment or art is work, but who can say art is art? Anyone can, it's subjective, but it has to be the right people, right? Now look, I'm not saying that all influencers are good people in the same way that all people are not good people. Humans are nuanced creatures and we make mistakes, we all have different motives. There are some influencers that I really very strongly dislike, like Joe Rogan, Jake Paul, or Tana Mojo, but the thing is that there are plenty of others who like them. And with nearly 8 billion people on the planet now, you can choose who you follow or listen to. Influencers are a means to an end for getting people to do the work that they want. They're all content creators and you all watch them, whether it's hate watching or actually enjoying them. Personally, the only kind of hate watching that we do is watching rich tours around people's houses and then critiquing like the bad taste that rich people have. That's kind of like our hate watch vibe. I don't hate watch influencers. I hate watch rich people's taste when they've created a monstrosity and called it eco-friendly when it takes over like 50 acres. Sure. You get your kicks in whatever way you want. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that all of these influencers that you're hating on, you're enjoying, you're getting entertainment from, people have to be able to afford to make the art that they want to make in order to make the entertainment that you want to watch, and that is why they have to do this influencer role even though they're all content creators. Now, I've raised this many times in the past and I'm going to raise it again now. We need to stop putting people on pedestals, okay? Seriously, like, you can admire the fact that someone's doing good work, but you can't go creating like this rickety pedestal for them to live on because that's just not sustainable for anyone. Like, recognizing that everyone's human is one of the best things that we can do. I've already made a whole video about the worst things that everyone in the entertainment industry has already done, and so that's why I wanted to make that as a bit of a highlight for the fact that no one is a good person. We're all trying to get by on a planet that is objectively getting less habitable by the year, and it's got many systems in place that need to change. When that happens, the glorification of exploitation and overconsumption will shift too. You give attention to what you want to see more of in the world. So if these influencers are making you mad, please redirect your energy to the other nearly 8 billion people on the planet who you can watch, who you can get inspired by, who you can be entertained by. There is no need to be like hate watching people, which only does worse for your mental health as well. I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this because this has just been a whole bunch of ideas that have been brewing in my mind for a very long time, and I'm very pleased to have gotten this out. Thank you for sitting through this whole rant. If you made it all the way through, please leave the cup of tea emoji. I would really appreciate it. And there'll be a new video next Tuesday all about the Olsen twins. Those videos take me so much longer to make, so I really do appreciate you sticking around because they tend to be very long as well. This one probably was too, so I apologize. Anyway, thanks lovelies, bye! I actually mentioned cringe culture to blah blah blah. I need a drink, I need a drink, I need a drink, I need a drink, and I wish it was wine. Which, like, please don't fight, I'm trying to film.